You can start.
Good morning and welcome to our Bowie Business Recovery Roundtable, Post-Pandemic Business Loans and Pivot Strategies, presented by Eddie Toobin, Chief Lending Officer at FSC First, a source of creative and innovative financing solutions for established and emerging businesses in Maryland. My name is Lisa Smith. I'm the Executive Director of the Bowie Business Innovation Center. We're a nonprofit award-winning hub for business acceleration operating at Bowie State University. This morning's session is part of the recently launched Bowie Business Recovery Program. This is 8 months of technical assistance programs consisting of counseling, training, webinars, workshops, and roundtables, all designed to accelerate the post-pandemic economic recovery of Bowie businesses. To see a calendar of our upcoming events, please visit the website for the project, www.bowiebusinessrecovery.com. You can also access the recording of today's session on the site in the session library. I think that we can all agree that small businesses cannot afford another year like 2020. It all really comes down to money and finance. So our speaker today is Eddie Toobin, Chief Lending Officer at FSC First. Eddie brings 30 years of lending experience and financial leadership to today's topic. So let's get started. Everyone, please mute yourself and post any questions that you have in the chat box. I guess having said that, I will then just say, Eddie, over to you and thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Good morning, everyone. And as you can see by the topic that Lisa and the folks at Bowie BIC have chosen, we're very optimistic that we're post-pandemic. We're getting there. Our leadership in Prince George's County has been on the front lines working for everybody to make sure that we get fair and equitable distribution of the vaccine. We're the first in the state of Maryland to open up with Governor Hogan an emergency center for massive vaccination. And many of our front line have already been vaccinated as of this date, February 10th, 2021. So we're praying for post-pandemic. And today we're going to talk about business loans and pivot strategies and any questions that others in the audience may have about what we do. We'll go to the next slide and I'll talk a little bit first about what we do at FSC First, and then I'll get into the specifics.
Not wanting to advance, Eddie.
You may have to click on the bottom. There was an arrow that lets you go. Yep. You see at the very bottom, Lisa, the left and the right arrows?
Got it.
Okay. So my background is coming from both business and from lending. I was in the construction and real estate development business for many years, working for a very, very large developer, building all kinds of office and suburban research and development projects, warehouse facilities and such. The Safeway building was one of the buildings I was involved with that we built, the warehouse facility with the banana room in Prince George's County many years ago. And I'm focused as the Chief Lending Officer of FSC First in providing the 12 different loan programs that we participate in, as well as assisting primarily with loans to small businesses for occupying their own real estate. So rather than leasing, you can buy and own your own facility. And we do that with SBA 504 lending anywhere in the state of Maryland, which allows as little as 10% down for those that seek to purchase. We can go to the next slide. So our company mission has been to assist Prince George's County. We're a nonprofit. We're a certified development corporation. We're a majority women and we are a majority minority business. And we're also a certified development financial institution. We can go to the next slide. Our vision here is that we want to be the premier lending partner for businesses in this region, providing creative and innovative financing to grow and sustain the local economy. What that really means is that we have capabilities that many lenders do not. As we get through the slideshow, you'll see that we have some expertise in the ability to be able to stack various different types of credit facilities together to meet the needs of small businesses. And we also work with businesses that maybe a bank would not want to work with at a particular stage. However, that doesn't mean that it's a pass. You still have to have some defendable positions and a business plan and assumptions that make sense for us and a good track record. We'll talk about that in a minute. We'll go to the next one, Lisa. So we have decades and decades and decades of experience in our office, and that's pretty much the whole office in the picture with the exception of me. I haven't been in the office since March when I started full-time. I was a board member prior to this. And prior to that, I was working as a lender for another CDFI. But we have helped the county to underwrite and distribute 25 million in grant funds through the Business Relief Initiative and a couple of other programs, some which is state money, some which was private money. And we've also received some funds from a large money center bank, which we're going to use to help support, guarantee certain loans that will originate directly with us. Anyone who wants to see what we do and what our loans available are can go to our website at fscfirst.com. We can go to the next one. As I mentioned, the number one loan that we have to offer is the SBA 504 loan. The SBA 504 loan would allow a small business to move out of a leased facility and purchase and own a facility so that you can fix your rent for the life of the loan. In other words, your rent will never go up because you own the facility, and we offer, from our percentage of the deal, we offer a transaction that can have up to 25 years at a fixed rate, and the fixed rates now are in the 2.7% range. That's a great number. But it also requires a bank to do the 50% of the acquisition on top of us. And so, as you may have heard me say, 10% can be the minimal down payment. So if you're at 10% as the borrower, you're using most of your cash in your business instead of putting it all into a fixed asset like real estate. You're getting a better return on your money by using that in your business. You need the working capital, and you're creating a scenario where you control your own destiny. We put in, say, 40%, the bank puts in 50%. Their loan's at a little higher interest rate. It'll probably last for 10 years and you'll have to refinance it then. But they will go at a 25-year amortization. So you'll still have money owed at the end of the 10th year, and you just refinance that out. We'll remain in a second lien position. And what you can end up with in many cases, say it's a doctor's office or a warehouse facility, you can end up selling your business down the road and using the real estate as rental income toward your retirement. It makes great sense as long as you're not in a business that requires massive expansion over periods of time. The maximum loan that we can provide is $5 million, $5.5 million in a special case, but add that to what a bank might do, we can easily do a $15 million type of a structure. We're looking at all kinds of risks right now in the economy. So we're a little concerned right now with certain industries. Hotels, of course, have had a massive blow. Restaurants have had a massive blow. We just have to see that the business is sustainable. And so before I get into some of the other components, the other loans that we do, what I want to talk about is how we can educate our business owners in Prince George's County to come out stronger. The whole purpose of Emerge Stronger from the county and what Bowie Bick is doing here today is to help, first and foremost, rebuild our economy and reopen up the jobs that we lost since last March. We were the leader in job creation up until that time in the state on a county by county basis. And we lost pretty much every job that we created along the way as a result of impacts from the pandemic, people being furloughed, etc. despite the influence of PPP and so forth. So now what we're finding, and as a lender, we're probably at FSC First one of the only groups that have actually seen almost 1,000 different interim financial statements during this period of time. And the reason is that most of the other lenders sat on the sideline and decided not to lend. We were providing grant funds, so it was a different picture for us, but we were able to get a picture of what was happening. And in the majority of cases, we've seen great declines in the periods that compare from 2020 to the prior 2019 period. For example, the second, the third, and the fourth quarter of 2020 mostly reflected lower revenues than the same periods in 2019 for these businesses. However, many businesses came out ahead. A local pizza and Italian restaurant not far from where I live is up 20% over last year because they immediately pivoted to a strategy where they implemented delivery service and curbside pickup. And for the longest time, they did delivery for free. They've now added a $3 charge for delivery, but picked up not only 20% gains, but they also opened another location. So now could be a decent time if your business is stable. Now could be a decent time to be able to go out and look to acquire real estate or to expand if your model is working. But you need to look at your expenses, and you need to look very hard at expenses right now and what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. I saw vehicles, luxury vehicles on people's tax returns at $1,800 a month that, for a restaurant, for example, and I asked, is this vehicle being used to deliver food or anything to do with the business? And it wasn't. And, a car is a car. You need to get back and forth to work. I understand you want to appreciate the sort of the rewards of your hard work, but it didn't make sense to have a car on the books at that kind of amount when the business was really suffering. And so I recommended that they look to see if they could terminate the lease and turn the car back in early and get another car, maybe from the same, automobile manufacturer that would be at a fraction of the cost and still provide the transportation. We've seen different strategies where people are obviously, outdoor seating, I don't think will ever go away. People need to figure out how to best manage to that. People need to figure out how to ensure that they understand their numbers. And that's where Bowie BIC comes in. Bowie BIC has a series of classes that can help our entrepreneurs in Prince George's County become stronger. And I'm going to ask Lisa to talk about some of those courses now and what we're trying to do from FSC First side in conjunction with our strategic alignment and partnership with the Bowie BIC.
Well, thank you, Eddie. I would just want to point out that people will have a chance if they want to set up an individual session with you to follow up on today's roundtable. And that information is on the website. It's called An Open Door with Eddie Tubin. So I want to first of all say people get another chance to talk with you. We also have on Thursdays from 5 to 6 currently, there's the time slot. There are a whole series of webinars that are addressing financial literacy issues, financial statements, forecasting, and some of the nuts and bolts that companies need for their post-pandemic recovery. And that information is also on the businessrecovery.com website. So those are two things that I will point out to people right off the top.
Excellent. What I found is that many people don't have a tool in place to be able to manage their business on a real-time basis, let alone on a monthly basis. And I don't understand how that can happen. It's impossible to drive your car blindfolded. And that's what's happening with many of our small businesses as they attempt to navigate through these rough waters without having timely and accurate revenue and expense numbers to see where they are at any given time and to be able to do comparative analysis to both their industry as a whole and to what occurred for them historically in the past. If you have the numbers, you get early warning signs. Many of you that have loans from business banks find that the continual request for quarterly or semi-annual or annual financials is annoying. But a really good banker isn't looking at your documents to be annoying, but rather to give you an early warning sign to things that they may see that are off track. For example, if your cost of goods sold goes up beyond what it should be, which is now reducing your margins, and you haven't caught that, but a simple analysis performed for free, in most cases by your business banker, gives you an early alert, that's not a terrible thing. Now, on the flip side, they're also looking to see where you are with regard to your debt to equity ratios and other covenants that may be in your loans. And for those reasons, you have to be very careful to understand the conditions of your loans, because if you're in a desperate position now and you went out and say got a merchant credit card advance, you may have just violated your loan covenant and it could be called and you could lose your loan. So again, that's part of what we want to do in terms of the education process through organizations like Bowie BIC to help our county entrepreneurs become stronger. Let me jump back now to the loan programs that we offer at FSC First, in addition to the SBA's 504 loan. SBA also has a small loan that we call the Community Advantage. It's in what we have as our Small Business Growth Fund. These are loans from $25,000 to $250,000, but for anybody who's in a startup mode, it would only be a maximum of $100,000, if that. And these are to help small businesses support day-to-day operations, do smaller real estate transactions, buy equipment, things of that nature. We do it in conjunction with the bank pool and Prince George's County that we have. And still, despite the size and amount, you need to be able to present a case which shows your strength, your management skills, your good personal handling of your own debt, which means a reasonably good credit score. You need to make sure your business is in good standing, just like with every other loan that we're talking about. And during the period of time when we had these grants, we were giving grants out to people. They were approved. It went to the Office of Law in Prince George's County, and things got held up because the Office of Law would go and check to see if the person's business was in good standing with the state. And lo and behold, they weren't. And so until that borrower got back in good standing, they wouldn't disperse the funds. And many businesses just didn't pay attention to that. And that was a really good lesson, because it took a week or so, especially during the pandemic when you couldn't physically go to an office in downtown Baltimore to pay your fee. It took a week or so to be able to handle those and get it through the system and get back into good standing. We also have the micro enterprise loan, and that's just for working capital and equipment for loans between $25,000 and $50,000. And then we work with many cities and other municipalities to help them in underwriting and administering loan programs specifically to help their localities. So for the city of New Carrollton, we have a fund that helps with renovations to buildings and things of that nature, and some furniture and equipment purchase and working capital. Obviously, it goes without saying, you have to be located in the city of New Carrollton to be eligible for it, but it's something that we have available. And all of these can be applied for on one single loan application, which we have on the FSC First website, along with requiring a list of checklist items that we have to have. And it's important, no matter where you go, no matter what lender you go to, please make sure that you're providing them with your business plan and all the checklist items. Clearly designate in the name of the file exactly what that checklist item is. And if it's a business plan, please don't put all the appendixes in individual files. Make it flow as one long, continuous document, save it as one file and present it that way, because for the borrower to have to go hunt back and forth amongst 20 or 30 files just makes it impossible. And in most cases, they're just not going to do it. They're not going to look. Let's go to the next slide, Lisa. We also have our Small Business Flex Fund, which is from $25,000 to $250,000 that came from the State Department of Commerce. This is a good working capital type of facility that doesn't need a government guarantee or funding of the loan loss reserves. It's very interesting. This is similar to what I was talking about a minute ago. We have a City of Bowie revolving loan fund. For those people who need assistance because their business has been impacted negatively by the construction of the Purple Line Metro, there's a fund with some monies for that. And then we're working with Pepco and Exelon on a green energy fund that they've asked us to administer, where we're looking to guarantee or provide loan loss reserves to banks for loans that are related directly to commercial building energy efficiency improvements and energy conservation and renewable energy measures. We'll go to the next slide. The EDI fund helps with those loans that are, those businesses that are actually committed to and agreeing to creating a certain number of jobs. And the loan amounts vary, but we've worked on that in a number of cases. You'll see that we have a contractor's advantage program with that, and a special assistance for local entrepreneurs who are at least 51% owned by county residents, by the way. That's critical. Their use is very, very similar to some of the other programs, but it's helping support a local bank to make a decision to lend to a contractor where they might not have otherwise. The other very interesting thing is that if you own a building and you would like to do some energy efficiency type of projects, the commercial property assessment for clean energy, or what we call CPACE program, is a loan program that offers a 20-year repayment, fully amortizing, and it gets added to your tax bill. So it's a great way to do upgrades and, first of all, help save money, because you can put in new mechanical, some electrical, lighting, solar energy, insulation, things of that nature that have a reasonably short repayment period. You know, solar panels can pay back their cost of installation in 6 to 9 years these days, based on where you're located and so forth. And they have a very long life, 25 years now. So if you get the CPACE, you could just add that to your tax bill, pay it over time. It's already paid for itself in a less than half of the term of the loan, and it makes it really efficient for you to operate. It's lowering other expenses for you along the way, so it makes really, really good sense. It doesn't really work for condominiums that well because it has to be based off a maximum percentage of the owned real estate. And so it's difficult unless it's like a individual warehouse, office condo, things like that. But it doesn't take into consideration the shared common areas, for example, the value of common areas and things like that. So that's how it works. I learned this trying to get a CPACE loan for a condominium building where I live. It wasn't going to work. Let's go to the next slide. Many of us have made it this far by, the skin of our teeth. And one of the things that our government helped us do was push the ball down the field a few months by providing payroll protection program lending. The majority of the money was to be spent for payroll to maintain employees? And if it was, then legitimately under those circumstances, you could apply and have that money converted from a loan into a grant and not have to repay it. The government's gone through some modifications to the program, but they've decided to extend this. Now, this is before President Biden's new economic incentive program, which he's trying to get approved now for $1 trillion or more dollars. But this round is limited in comparison to the first round. The only way you can qualify is if your business has 300 or fewer employees, and you have to show that you had a 25% or greater revenue loss in any quarter of 2020 in comparison to the same quarter of 2019. Now that means that it's a calendar quarter. So the first quarter, January to March, the second quarter, the third quarter, the fourth quarter. You can't just take 3 months out of the year and just put them together. It can't be overlapping from one quarter to the other. And it only needs to be one, any quarter. So if in fact you didn't have a loss in any one quarter, or you only had a loss in one quarter, you'd be eligible for that. If you didn't have a loss in any quarter, you're not eligible. If you did in only one, but you didn't in the other three, you were okay. Your maximum draw is going to be like 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. Unless you're in the hospitality or restaurant business, which are all those businesses with the NAICS code 72, in which case you get 3.5 times. For second draw PPP loan applicants with up to 150 requests, there's a really simple certification process. You just have to attest to qualifying, and that's it. If it's more than that, you have to go with a little bit more documentation. And it is fully tax deductible of business expenses on the forgiven PPP loan on both the first and second draw loans now. They changed that a little bit from the first. So it's expanding some of the forgivable expenses beyond what happened in PPP round one. So you can include supplier costs like accounting and IT expenses, investments in software. You can read that, but you have to have it maintained within a certain ratio. Still, you have to have a certain percentage of it being used for payroll and only up to a certain percentage being used for that. And the two have to balance. We'll go to the next slide. There are many lenders that are providing PPP loans. I recommend you go back to the original lender if you had a PPP round one. And if not, there are local lenders that offer PPP. Some of them want you to do banking with them, and others do not. There are also non-bank lenders out there like Cabbage, Fountainhead, several others who will provide a PPP loan. And it's very easy. They have electronic sites set up. You don't need to bank with them. They're pretty efficient in getting the job done. They learn their lessons from the first round, which really crushed them. And so if anybody needs information further about that, because you can't get PPP from your existing bank, I recommend that. Now, I just saw a question from Tarshawiri. Can I talk more on the 7A loan? Absolutely. So first of all, the 7A loan is a companion. It's an additional loan product to the Community Advantage and to the 504 loan. It's offered through SBA approved lenders only. They can be banks and non-banks as well. There are several in the United States that are licensed to be able to offer SBA 7A loans, and they're non-banks. There are other community banks that are able to offer them, and we do not offer them at FSC First. This, instead of being a two-part loan, is one loan. The money does not come from the SBA. It comes directly from the bank. Any lender that wishes to participate in the program can, but they don't have to if they don't want to. However, if they elect to be involved in the 7A program, they have to abide by the rules of the program. Now, rules include things like the rate. The maximum rate is prime plus 275, adjustable monthly, and each bank has their own way of looking at how they want to deal with these loans. They can be used for equipment, sometimes working capital, although banks shy away from that a lot, and they can be used for real estate acquisition. They are 25 years for real estate deals and up to 10 years for equipment and working capital or business acquisitions. However, their maximum term for a loan that doesn't include real estate is 10 years, and that maximum is the maximum term of the amount remaining on a lease plus any options to extend to a maximum of 10 years. So if you only had a lease for 5 more years and it only had one renewal of 2 years, the maximum loan you could get was 7 years. Homes are not eligible for these kinds of transactions. And in fact, you wouldn't want to use an SBA 7A loan because the rates are much higher than what you can get from a conventional bank over 30 years at, just under 3% right now for a residential loan. You cannot use SBA 7A or 504 loans for investment properties. You have to have owner occupied real estate for that, and it must be commercial in nature. It has to be a business that's occupying that facility. Now, in some cases, we do see assisted living facilities that acquire residential real estate, and they rent rooms out to individual patients. Those are eligible. Hotels are eligible, even though they rent their rooms out. But apartment buildings, homes, and things of that nature are not eligible for the SBA 7A loan program. I highly recommend that when you're looking for an SBA 7A loan, you ensure that you find someone who is an SBA 7A lender, a banker that understands and works in that. I co-founded the Maryland Commercial Lenders Association. It is filled with SBA 7A lenders in the state of Maryland and DC and Northern Virginia. I would recommend using any one of those individuals because SBA lending is really unique and it has some requirements that a normal banker wouldn't understand. And sometimes you're led down the path where they take too long to get to the point where they tell you you don't qualify, rather than somebody who really knows the program up front and can help you analyze quickly and make the decision before you lose the property that you might have under contract. All the lenders are desperate right now. They want to find a deal and bring every single deal they can in and show that, their manager, oh, look, it's on my pipeline, even if it really doesn't qualify, because they're scared to death. They don't want to lose their jobs. But at the same time, you need to ensure that you're with the right lender. And specifically, and I'll give you an example, there are certain lenders that do SBA 7A loans that understand microbreweries. I don't understand who the equipment comes from, what the layouts need to be, what the ceiling heights need to be, what are the exhaust requirements, what's the trash requirements, what is the storage requirements, all those types of questions that I would know if it was a biotech fermenter, for example. I just happen to have expertise in that. If it was a restaurant, a hotel, a gas station, I have all those ratios. We know all those numbers. We're familiar with underwriting them. We can tell the story of the comparison between the business plan that the entrepreneur provides versus what we know factually, not only from an industry perspective, but from our own specific region, because we do these loans day in and day out, and we know what we're looking for, and we've seen the stories over and over again. So the best thing is to make sure you really have a great plan. And if you don't have a really solid business plan that you understand, that you can speak to, that someone can ask you directly. In other words, if you have somebody else prepare a business plan, they're not going to ask that person. They're going to ask you because they want to know the entrepreneur knows and is the key individual responsible for guiding this business through thick or through thin, no matter what, pandemic or not, to pay this loan off the first of the month every month for the next X number of years of the loan. I have one question I want to look at. While in a pandemic, are banks really looking at how much money a business is currently borrowing, which could become an issue with a microloan if they were to apply? Banks are definitely looking at how much money. You cannot be blind to the amount of debt that's being incurred, but they're also looking at what the payback is. So on many of these pandemic transactions, like EIDL, for example, it's a 30-year repayment. That's next to nothing. But are they going to look at debt to equity? Absolutely. Are they going to be concerned when you start to get to 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times? Super red light for them. But they're also going to look at your debt service coverage ratio. Can you generate enough cash flow to repay the debts, all the debts, with a margin of about 25%? So they want to see, for every $1,000 in principal and interest, they want to see about $1,250, which is a 1.25 to 1 debt service coverage ratio. The debt of 1,000 to the coverage being 1,250, which is 1.25 times over the debt. No matter what, because let me just look at it from the other perspective. And it's a really good question you asked, Tarsha. If you're not at that level and you're below 1 to 1, what are you? You're bankrupt. If you don't have enough money to pay the bills, your business is bankrupt. And so no bank is going to lend in that circumstance, regardless of pandemic or not. They can't take their shareholder money, they can't take government funds and put it into a business that they know is not going to survive. Now, they can give grant money for those purposes, which has been exactly the policies that our government agencies have been purporting since we had the Great Recession. You may remember in the Great Recession, we had a situation where we gave a certain amount of money with SBA emergency disaster funds, and the disaster loans had, I think, no payment for the first year, and then in the next 2 years, you had to repay at a very low interest rate. The reason for that money being put on the table at the time was to move from month 1 to 3 months down the road, where they had hoped that at the end of those 3 months, the economy would be back on its feet again. And that's what happened with round 1 PPP. It was a lot of money. People received a lot of money. The grants that we gave out up to $100,000 for certain businesses with large numbers of employees located right here in Prince George's County. We gave out a lot of money to help them move down the road and hopefully get to the end. We never thought at that point that this pandemic was going to last this long. And now we're into PPP round 2. And we know that we're going to see something from the Biden administration as well. So let's go to the next slide. Some of the other things that we do, we work with the city of Mount Rainier. They have an incentive fund. I believe the number is going to be reduced to $25,000 from $50,000 versus the loan amount that we have. We have our business expansion fund, which is supported by economic development here in Prince George's County. And then we have a Strive for 35. We received some money from Washington Gas Light, and they're looking for funding minority-owned, women-owned, and service-disabled businesses that are involved in the natural gas industry. And that could be any kind of a business. It could be somebody digging ditches to lay, trenching for gas lines, or people helping service gas equipment inside of homes, things of that nature. If anybody knows anyone, we're looking desperately to provide those funds. Let's go to the next slide. So on the left, you'll see a picture of 2 of my colleagues, Dawn and Stu, delivering a check to a small business. This was just a great day for us, trying to assist in keeping that. We've kept a positive attitude. Our leader, Shelley Gross Wade, is very forward thinking, and she's recognized the strain and the stress that's been put. We're just a dozen, you know, quasi-county employees working to help the government assure that our small businesses survive and that, again, we're better educated as we go forward into next year with recovery. But we're not all things to all people. We're human as well. And so it took a toll on us because we knew that we needed to address each one of those small businesses with those emergency grants as soon as possible. Now, I think we have the last one more slide, I think, is contact information maybe. Our website, fscfirst.com. Maybe you can bring the website up, Lisa, and you can just flip to the application. But if anyone has any other questions, if you want to add anything, please, please do. I'm looking right now at the one question I have is about childcare and borrowing money to position the company to receive government funds, but the business isn't generating any money. They're borrowing like many others, and they have contracts to prove that once the county reopens, they can pay back a loan. Yeah, I don't think without existing current revenue, the only thing that I think you can qualify for would be another round of PPP funding. And, you know, that's related to your payroll. So hopefully in a case like that, you need W-2 employees to justify payroll expense. If your employees are 1099 employees, that really won't work. And you could still be eligible for EIDL funding, which I would suggest you look into, which is also a loan, but really easy to get. It's like a 6-minute application online for that. And another reasonable interest rate, long-term repayment type scenario that could help you get a loan now, despite this situation that you're in. They're probably going to want to see your historical tax returns. I'm assuming that in the past, your childcare did generate cash flow. That would be important. And I don't know, there was a county program. There was a grant program for county child care facilities that I don't know if it's still available. They may have run out of the funds though. But that was something that Prince George's County also saw, created a special pool of funds and distributed money pretty quickly. It could have moved, it could have been used very quickly, but if you'll send Lisa or I an email about that, that would help.
I think you're correct, Eddie, that the funding has been already fully utilized for the child care initiative. But that's something we can look into. That's my recollection too.
I want to give a shout out to my friend Maria Randall, who I see has joined us again, and I want to thank her.
All of our friends, Maria Randall.
There you go.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Good to see you. How's it going? How are you holding up?
Going well. Staying busy.
Excellent. Excellent.
Great presentation.
Thank you. Oh, we have a poll question for everybody. So if you want to enjoy that for a second, go right ahead. Tarsh, I'm reading your list. You received your first and second PPP funds, and you received EIDL funds, and you're trying to grow in a pandemic. Would a bank be willing to help me grow, or do I have to wait? Well, if you're stable right now and you're able to support the repayment on your debts, including what they're going to factor in for when your PPP converts to a loan that you have to start making payments and your EIDL starts making payments, I think you could get either a microloan or an SBA 7A loan, because those loans are supported by government backing, which helps mitigate the risk. But you're still going to have to show a plan with 3 years worth of projections that are going to be, in the first year, it has to be month to month. showing your revenues and expenses with assumptions as to how you came up with those numbers. And then in the second and third year, you can just show annualized numbers, but also define what the assumptions are and be able to do that calculation that I've been talking about, be able to present within that request for funding. Here's what I'm looking to do. Here are my pro forma projections for the growth of this business. And here's where I believe the loan will be priced. Here's what I think the principal and interest payment will be. Here's what my other debts are. Here's what my free cash flow is going to be. And that is 1.25, 1.3 times, 1.4 times that number. I don't have a template. I think if you coordinated with Malcolm Slovin at the SBA SCORE office over in College Park, that you could easily get some assistance from the SCORE office, which, you know, it's the senior career retired executives that have agreed to assist small businesses. And I want to find Malcolm's email address and give it to everybody here today. He is really a great resource. He came out of government contracting, and so if it's not his area of expertise, he will direct you to somebody who is maybe more in tune with your particular industry, so they can give you better insight. Excuse the typing. I believe that's it. Can you see that? Just let him know that I recommended the connection. This is what he does now in his retirement. And, you know, he should be able to help. He should be even able to help you with a business plan that he's got draft plans that he can show you that you can then massage to be your specific business. And then he'll give you feedback, or one of the appropriate advisors as a volunteer will give you feedback, and it doesn't cost you any money. So it's not like you have to go to your CPA and have all kinds of projections done or things like that. You should be able to do it yourself, because like I said before, the bank wants to know that you're the one, as the leader of the organization, to be able to take this business on a month-to-month basis and earn enough money and to pay off all your expenses plus them every month, the first of the month, for as long as the loan goes. And you're very welcome. Thanks for joining us today, and thanks for being a Prince George's County entrepreneur and business owner.
I'd like to add another resource to the mix, and that is a small business development center counselor, Mark Wells, who works very extensively with the Bowie-Vick family. And Mark has a long career in business banking and is absolutely an amazing resource as well. And the best way to get him is his email, mwells14@umd.edu. And Mark has helped many companies sort through the issues around increasing their chances for bank financing, and also to help people get lines of credit extended and all kinds of other tools that emerging companies and even established companies need, particularly at this time. So we have lots of great resources in that regard. So let's see, we've got a final note that's up there that we're interested in getting some additional information from our meeting attendees. So if you could take a quick second to look at those few questions. Eddie, we always appreciate having you with us. We learn new things, new twists, new developments, updates. This is a very dynamic environment. Who says banking is boring, right?
Yeah.
You know, and same is true for financing.
So true.
Yeah,
so true. And
yeah.
you know, we're just beside ourselves. I mean, we'd like to save everybody. I mean, at FSC First, all of us, it's in our DNA to help people. And it hurts us when we see so many struggling and people being furloughed and laid off, and businesses sitting there, you know, ready to do business, ready to serve meals, ready to sell clothing and unique items and provide the different services that they do, childcare and such. And you know, we never anticipated this. We never thought about this. And obviously, given the way the pandemic in the United States has grown, the United States never really planned properly for this. You know, we look at other examples, Australia, New Zealand, Israel, they're pretty much through the pandemic already, and we're still suffering. But Angela Alsobrook has really been an amazing leader in gaining as much access to vaccination services as over and above any other county that I can compare to. So it's just wonderful to see what our county officials are doing on our behalf. And I just hope everybody recognizes that while we're struggling through this, hopefully by the time we get through this, we'll just all be stronger. And we'll also recognize how important it is to be a member of this community and work together, thinking about, you know, when you need services, can I find somebody local in Prince George's County to be able to provide that service for me so that we can help build the economy that way? And hopefully other people think the same. And, you know, they're always going to look fundamentally, just like the banks. The questions today were fantastic. The banks cannot loosen up their lending underwriting requirements because we're in the middle of a pandemic. That's not going to happen. That would be a violation of what we call their fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders. But there have been grant programs which help to support our small businesses. And the education concept, the fact that people are just realizing how important it is to be better, stronger managers of their business so that they can navigate these rough waters. And these have been really, really rough waters for all of us, including the bankers. I mean, a lot of the bankers were told, sit on the sidelines, don't do anything. And, you know, nobody wants to go into foreclosures. Nobody wants to be the bank that, I'll give you an example. We don't lend to nonprofits, but nobody wants to be the bank that forecloses on a church or a synagogue. Believe me, that's the last thing you want in the newspaper. And so, you know, it's been really difficult for all those different organizations to be able to do things like that.
Yeah. Eddie, you gave us a great rundown on the different financing options. And I know that folks can access the recording at the Bowie Business Recovery website. But if any of our participants today would like a copy of your slides, they can drop a quick email to Crystal Clark, crystal.clark@bowiebic.com, and we'll forward a copy of this to them too, because I always enjoy seeing that all laid out so that I can evaluate where would my particular company fit. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and if anybody has a question, you know, you can always email me. My email is really easy, et@fscfirst.com, and I'm happy to answer questions and so forth.
Right.
And if, you know, there are some times where I have connections that I made. Well, I think if you're interested in talking further, we do the one-on-one program, and you should be getting an email from Bowie Bic about the next one-on-one, and you can sign up for that. And basically it's me, you know, just sharing some experience and my Rolodex. You have to do the homework. I'll give you a couple of contacts if I have them, and might be able to help with some thoughts and ideas further that maybe were confidential you didn't want to discuss on this call, or maybe this call helped you think about some other things that you might be able to do to add revenue streams to your business. So if you started your business and you only had one revenue stream, but through the pandemic you found you had two more, it's not a great example maybe for this audience, but for the restaurant business, I only had, you know, indoor seating, but now I have curbside and I have delivery, and I also have, you know, packaged meals that I'm selling down the street to a store, which that may not be possible due to USDA restrictions. But think about the first two. How do you keep a business with multiple revenue streams from now going forward? In other words, don't rely on just one revenue stream. Diversify it so that you have the multiple revenue streams, so that at any given time, if you get hit in one area, you have the others to support it. That's a positive thing that hopefully comes out of the lessons that we've learned during the pandemic going forward. And with that, I wish everybody a wonderful day, great success, stay safe, and please get the damn jab.
Thank you, Eddie. Anyone who would like to sign up to talk to Eddie again one-on-one, he'll be available on the 18th of February.